Welcome to Podcast and Business from Boston, United States. Today, my guest is Saul Kaplan. Saul is the founder of the Business Innovation Factory. The Business Innovation Factory designs, prototypes, and testing new business models for social impact. In this episode, Saul shares with us the opportunities for innovation in challenging times. Hi Saul, how are you?
JC, it's wonderful to be with you. Nice to talk with you today.
Thank you. I am so happy that having you as a guest finally in my podcast. So I read an article in McKinsey, that start with one quote of John F. Kennedy that says the word crisis is composed of two characters. One represents danger and another opportunity. What is the role or what's the opportunity of the innovation in these challenging times, in your opinion?
Well, what a great question to start off with, JC. I thought I understood innovation and transformation. I mean, you know me a long time. I eat, sleep, and breathe this and have worked my entire career in this space. And I thought I understood what it means to innovate and particularly to transform, to do something bold and transformational. But it really wasn't until this crisis hit that I really think I have some insight into it, right? And so this notion of it takes a crisis, I mean, this is the mother of all burning platforms. I mean, how many times have we over our careers used the phrase, we need a burning platform, an impetus for people to change, to imagine a different approach to solving problems. And it's never until the crisis, it seems, until we're motivated to do it. So this last year in this COVID crisis, it's been both painful to watch how many people, institutions, and communities, were not prepared and struggle. And how many people have been left behind, even more so during this crisis. But at the same time, it's an amazing opportunity with these constraints to experiment and to try something new and to use technologies in a new and different way to solve our problems. And we've seen many examples of that. I'm sure we'll talk about that, here as we go. So I think it's a double-edged coin. On one side, we have to have empathy for people that are really affected by this crisis in incredibly hard ways. And on the other side, we have to be open to optimism and exploring and building and creating, so that we can accelerate the solutions to some of these problems. Hopefully, solutions, many of them, that will live beyond the crisis. That's my hope.
Speaking about changing, organizations in all kinds of this size, small, medium, big, are having difficult times. And we have to redesign many processes to have much better impact, right? There are metrics, environment, social, and governance, to have a more sustainable and more equally and more organizations. These metrics will play an important role right now. In your opinion, how these metrics are related to innovation?
Really important question, JC. The tried and true saying, we get what we measure, is true. And a lot of the things that we measure today were important during an industrial era when we were trying to scale certain business models, right, or certain social systems to educate in healthcare, in government services. But when you look at what we want to do today, we have some really new and really important objectives. Small things like sustaining the environment and our planet, with all the threats of global warming and climate change. We're going to have to change the measures and build models that are aligned with these new measures. We're going to need to be purposeful about how these new models work if we're going to solve these big challenges like the environment. So yes, we have to step back and we have to design our approaches in this new world, in this new set of market opportunities, which is very exciting, but we have to think differently about what the objectives are, how we're going to measure it, how we're going to hold ourselves accountable, right, for the things that are important to us. And I think there's a growing consensus. Today, we heard the president talk about climate change and making it a priority for the country. So I think you're going to see this process accelerate, not a moment too late, in my
Exactly.
opinion.
And as you mentioned, President Biden just is going to put a lot of effort in this kind of process that involve climate change and other topics related to climate change. In this case, and innovation will play an important role. In fact, let me tell you, or let me share with you that McKinsey, in one article, mentioned that $30 trillion are invested just in the metrics ESG. So you know many people, different kind of fields, storytellers, businessmen, manager, etc., pharmaceutical, governance. What fields or industries, in your opinion, has increasing or focus in innovation during this COVID-19 crisis?
Yeah, so my answer to this question probably won't surprise you. I mean, you're right. I've always been, how do we mine the gray areas, the opportunities that live behind in
Mhm.
between our silos? So I've always been more of a horizontal, how do we connect the dots and see patterns across disciplines, across industries? And I happen to believe the most interesting opportunities to create
Mhm.
new enterprises and to align with the purpose of some of the social issues that you're talking about are things that require you to look outside of those silos. So my short answer to your question is, people always ask me which industry sectors are more affected by the type of disruption that we see. And obviously the businesses that are more, that we can digitize faster are the ones that got hit
Right.
first, right? The minute we could digitize a
Right.
newspaper,
Exactly.
or a book, right? And some of the more physical products, kind of spaces, didn't get hit as hard. Today, that's just not true. There is no industry that doesn't have to step back and reimagine
Mhm.
its business model or it will fall behind. That doesn't have to accelerate its path to integrate digital into their businesses, even if there are physical products that are a component of the business that they're in. It doesn't matter. So I believe that no matter what industry you're in, number one, you've got to have peripheral vision to see outside of the industry, because the chances of one of the
Mhm.
existing players, right, continuing to lead the industry
Right.
10 years out, right, are not good unless leaders start to think differently about what industry they're in. And this is happening faster and faster. I've been saying it, for lots and lots of years. It just happens to be
Exactly.
true today, that you have to think that way. So any executive that tells me they're not vulnerable to these disruptive forces, right, my answer is, I would respectfully
Right.
disagree and try to work to show them that they're being disrupted and they might not even know it today. By the time they figure it out, it's going to be too
Exactly. And
late.
to reinforce what you're saying right now, today we are having the Davos agenda, the World Economic Forum. And as you say right now, is the vital importance that companies and the leaderships and CEOs take this very seriously.
And they do. And I think they do. I mean, if you ask leaders today, they will tell you, that innovation, is critically strategic and important. And they get that, right? But they say it, but they're still really committed to today's business model. And they're not willing to
Exactly.
disrupt themselves, which is what real leadership does. in order to stay ahead and reinvent the markets and the businesses that they're in. And you're seeing lots of examples of that
Yeah, and
today.
also the disruption or the innovation change according to the culture. You know, in United States is different, in Asia, in Latin America are completely different as well. The process are probably more slow in one place and faster in another one. So COVID, as we mentioned before, hit all of us. And this health worldwide crisis, the minorities communities were hit more than ever because also they were already vulnerable. Innovation, like the Business Innovation Factory has in the core, has to do with the science-centered approach. Is this approach of the Lunar U program?
Yeah, so I know when we started BIF, I mean, when you and I first became acquainted, we've always been about human-centered design as an innovation tool.
Oh, I see.
Thinks about new opportunities all the way up to transformational business models that are designed with the human that we're trying to serve at the core. I think this is one of the key and fundamental principles. We can tweak, we can improve the way business is done today, and we should every day, right? But if we really want to play in this new environment where disruption is around every corner, we've got to be very nimble about establishing new transformational ways to help people solve problems. And there is no question that during the industrial era, we scaled huge enterprises, right, that could serve the masses. But what we forgot was, and we didn't pay attention to, was how many people were being left behind that didn't fit into that model. And as more and more people were left behind, right, particularly in communities that are underserved, Black communities, Latino communities. And we've seen this in this COVID crisis. I mean, it's shameful what we're learning, right? We already knew that these communities were at a huge disadvantage and were not well served by industrial era mass market models, whether it's for education or healthcare or government services, right? And so it's really important that we flip that script, that we design models. I believe in solving the hardest problems first. Because if we can solve the hard problems, then everybody can benefit from them, as opposed to just stripping off the easy marketplaces. And so at BIF, we start with underserved communities, right? We try to design solutions for them, knowing that if we can solve the problem, that then it will easily scale to the entire community, and as opposed to the other way around, where we scale something that works for everyone else, and then we come back and we try to solve the problem, for underserved populations. We need to flip that script, and that's what we've been doing for years and years at BIF. And in this COVID crisis, it was so emotionally, hard, right, to watch people that were struggling during this crisis, right, and know that a different set of solutions were going to be required, for us, to help them through the crisis and beyond. The work is really inspiring. It's really hard. But it's also really important.
Yeah, and I like the idea that Black and Hispanic women, are more vulnerable for many reasons. So we have the vaccine around. People are got it vaccinated. Do you think that we will back to in one point to a new normal and have normal life?
Well, I mean, specifically as it relates to COVID-19, yes, I do believe we will get through this. Right. And we will distribute and vaccinate enough people to reach a level of herd immunity that not that the virus will go away.
Right. No.
But we will be able to get back to some semblance of normal, at least as it relates to COVID. I don't know. The word normal, I'm not so sure, because I think we're in times that are going to change rapidly. It's going to be hard to define what's normal over any long period of time. But specifically as it relates to COVID, we are going to get through this. It's going to take longer than any of us hoped. Now we're starting to hear it could be end of summer, early fall.
I see.
Right? It's a reasonable expectation. Okay, I think I'm going to trust that for a little while here and watch some of the data to see whether we're able to progress towards that. Still a long ways off. I don't know about you,
right?
But when I hear end of summer, early fall, I start counting on my fingers the number of months. That means I'm going to be sitting in this office here at home. If you think about it, we'll get through this. We just have to keep supporting each other. We have to keep wearing our masks and doing things we need to do to protect each other. But yes, I do think we'll get to the other side of it.
That's great. So, anything that you would like to add about related to the innovation during this crisis or pro-crisis innovation?
Yeah, well, the one thing I've been thinking a lot about lately is this notion of, let's call it the resiliency around the solutions we create. I'm a little worried about what I call the rubber band effect. And what I mean by that is, I'll use education as my example here, because we got forced. We weren't prepared, but we got forced to use Zoom and other remote video in order to continue to connect with our students across the country.
Right.
And you hear everybody up in arms, about how poor that is, compared to having them in the classroom, right? And all of the downstream disruption that caused for families that needed to work. It's been really, really hard for families and for children around
adapt. Yeah.
I personally believe the solution we need, even after the crisis is over, is going to blend in classroom with using these new digital tools to enhance someone's learning experience.
I see.
Right? We've had the opportunity during this crisis to get much better at how these online tools, can work and add value. I'm worried that so many people are fed up with how poorly prepared we were for this crisis, even though those video tools have been around for a long time.
I agree.
That they're going to snap back, the rubber band will snap back the minute this crisis is over, and we will forget that we could use these remote tools to enhance the learning experience and augment the learning experience. Or we can use telemedicine to stay connected to people in their homes and to work on their well-being. So when I say we need to avoid that rubber band effect, we need to make sure that some of these solutions we created in this crisis, continue to thrive and to grow, and we don't snap back to, thank goodness we can go back to the way it was, before the crisis. So I think we should approach that with intentionality, proactively, rather than just watching it happen.
Exactly. And I want to quote in you because I read your book and you say sometimes tweaks are not enough. So where people can reach you, or how people can contact with you, and in your Twitter and LinkedIn, how people can try to contact to learn more about innovation in these times.
Yes, well, I'm always happy. I'm all over social media. So on Twitter at SCAP5, people can connect with us at businessinnovationfactory.com, or they can take a look at our new initiative, Luna U, which is our maternal health, maternal well-being platform, where we're bringing everything you and I just talked about in a focused way to bear on improving the maternal health outcomes, particularly for Brown and Latino women that are suffering from the worst outcomes, made even worse by the COVID crisis.
It's true. All those links will be in this episode on my webpage, Podcast and Business Support Luna U program, as you know. So I would like to say thank you so much for your time.
Oh, always great to mix it up with you, JC. I'm glad you're doing well. Take care of yourselves.
Thank you so much. I am Juan Carlos Giraldo from Boston, United States. Have a good night, everyone.